Over the next 10 years, you're going to spend about $3,000 you did not have to spend, not on better gear, on the same gear bought wrong. And the money is the smaller half of it. The stuff quietly draining you is the same stuff that quits on you when it matters. The scope that loses 0 on day 6. The boot that comes apart in the dark 2 miles from the truck. The camera on a tree that stopped working 2 years ago and never told you. 7 categories. In 4 of them, the expensive product is the one that costs less. Every number here has a name and a price attached, and by the end, you will know exactly which side of that line your gear is on. Subscribe if you want this math run before you spend the money instead of after. That is the entire channel. Start with the one bolted to your rifle right now. Your scope costs $2,200 and it will not hold 0. A $350 scope will. Both got dropped onto the same concrete, the same way, and only the cheap one came back shooting where it was pointed. I sold both of those off the same shelf. I have watched a man hand over 2 months of truck payments for glass because somebody behind the counter told him expensive meant tough. I was sometimes that guy behind the counter. Here is the number that made me stop saying it. There is a drop test that runs on the Rokslide forum, not a guy tossing scopes in a parking lot. 50+ documented tests, rifles dropped onto concrete from escalating heights up to 36 inches, 0 checked after every single impact. Northern Rifle went through the accumulated results and ran the statistics. Trijicon performs above the market average at a 99.9% confidence level. SWFA at 99.8. Nightforce is significant as well. The top 5 brands were Revic, Minox, Trijicon, SWFA, and Nightforce. And then the sentence that costs people real money. Leupold scopes do not perform any differently on that drop test than the broader market. Neither does Vortex. Look at what failed. The Leupold Mark 5 HD, $2,199.99. The Vortex Razor HD LHT in 4.5 to 22 power, also $2,199.99. Traktoric, Athlon Helos. Maven RS, 0.5. What passed? The SWFA SS, 6 power fixed, $349.95. I want to be straight with you about what that data does and does not say, because this is where a video like this usually starts lying. Every one of those results is 1 unit of 1 model, sample of 1. What it supports is a brand-level pattern with real statistical weight behind it. What it does not support is me telling you every Mark V in America will fail. It supports me saying the unit tested failed, the brand shows no advantage over market average across the whole dataset, and the cheap fixed power scope survived the identical protocol. And the single best fact in this category is the Zeiss. The Zeiss LRP S5 in 3 to 18 power sells for $3,699.99. Zeiss validates that scope at 1500 G-force and runs it through over 800 impact cycles at 1000 G-force. That is a serious laboratory program, and I am not going to pretend it is marketing. It failed the drop test. A machine striking a scope the same way 800 times in a fixture is not a rifle sliding off a rock at a bad angle 1 time. The lab number is real. The field result is also real. When they disagree, the field result is the one that ends up in your hands on day 6 of an elk hunt. It helps to know what is actually breaking in there because it is not the glass. Coated lenses are stable. What moves is the erector assembly, the tube inside the tube that carries your reticle and gets pushed around by your turrets. It is held in position by spring pressure. A hard enough impact shoves it out of position, and it does not always shove back. Your point of impact moves, and it stays moved. The other failure is the seal. Scopes get purged with nitrogen, so there is no moisture inside to condense. When that seal lets go, the inside of your scope fogs on a cold morning, and there is nothing you can do about it in the field, because the water is sealed in with the glass. That is why the simplest scope on that pass list is a fixed 6 power, nothing to displace. Fewer springs, less mass hanging off the erector, less to knock loose. It is not a coincidence that the Survivor is also the least complicated thing on the shelf. Trijicon publishes that every product is tested to the MIL STD 810G standard. Nightforce publishes multi-axis recoil testing exceeding 1250 G. Leupold runs every design through 5,000 impacts on a recoil machine they call the Punisher. Those are all real programs. Trijicon and Nightforce show up in the statistics. Leupold does not. Now the warranty pitch, because it is built to make you forget all of this. The Vortex VIP is unlimited, unconditional, and transferable, and Vortex will absolutely replace a scope that fails. SWFA's For Life transfers with no receipt. Leupold's transfers with no time limit. Trijicon is the odd one out. Original owner only under the written terms. Electronics covered for 3 years. But no warranty gives you a second crack at that bull. A lifetime guarantee manages the manufacturer's cost. It does not manage your risk at the moment the trigger breaks. The brands worth paying for are the ones that need it least. That is one category. There are 6 more, and in 4 of them, the expensive product is the one that costs you less by the end of the decade. Second, trail cameras, and this is the biggest number on the list. A Reconix Hyperfire in the SD card version is $399.99. Assembled and tested by hand in Holman, Wisconsin, and it carries a 5-year warranty. That matters more than it sounds like, because the retailer TrailCam Pro has pointed out that most cellular cameras are inexpensive imported devices sitting outdoors 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and most manufacturers put 1 year on them, 5 years against 1. That is a company telling you in writing how long it expects its own product to live. Run that camera a decade. Reconix documents something around 16 months and 30 to 40,000 photos on a set of lithium. Call it $20 a year in batteries. $650 for 10 years. 1 camera, 1 purchase. Now the cellular one. $130 on the shelf. Then the subscription starts. Tacticum Reveal is $5 a month on the starter tier and $13 a month for unlimited, which is $120 a year. SpyPoint gives you 100 photos a month free and charges $10 a month for 1,000. Moultrie is $8.99 a month paid annually and climbs. 10 years of a plan that actually sends you every picture instead of rationing them is $1,200. Then the camera dies, and not from weather. On February 22nd of 2022, AT&T shut down its 3G network. T-Mobile followed on July 1st. Verizon finished December 31st, and Verizon's older CDMA network had already gone dark on the last day of 2019. Every cellular camera built for those networks became a plastic box on a tree, not broken. Not water damaged. Working perfectly and completely useless, because the network it was built to talk to stopped existing. A hunter who bought a Verizon 3G camera in August of 2018 got roughly 19 months of cellular life out of it. 19 months. And nobody inside the business was surprised. TrailCam Pro stopped selling cameras it could not guarantee on September 1st of 2019 and warned the market was about to be flooded with 3G stock. SpyPoint acknowledged the problem publicly and offered trade-ins inside its 2-year warranty window. So, $130 for the camera, $1,200 for the subscription, call it $300 more replacing hardware that ages out. $1,630 against $650. That replacement pace is my count, not a number off a receipt, so hold it against your own seasons. Slower than me, and your gap shrinks. Harder on gear than average, and it grows. The shutdown dates are not my count. Those are on the record. The $400 camera is $1,000 cheaper, and the reason it survives is not that it is built better, though it is. It is that there is nothing to shut off. No network, no app, no company deciding how long to keep servers running. You walk to the tree, pull the card, go home. Third, knives. This one is going to make some of you feel very good about what is already in your pocket. Hardness and toughness pull against each other. The same heat treatment that lets a blade hold an edge longer makes it more likely to chip instead of bend. Edge retention comes largely from carbides, and vanadium carbides run around 2,800 on the Vickers scale against roughly 1,500 for chromium carbides. That is why S900V at 60 hardness outruns 420HC at 58 by far more than those 2 points suggest. Sounds like an argument for expensive steel. It is not, and the metallurgist Laren Thomas has published why. What opposes toughness is abrasion resistance, not edge holding itself, and microchipping ruins a working edge as completely as dulling does. steels up at 66 and 67 hardness, and high carbide steels like M390, chip on bone and frozen tissue. Tougher steels at lower hardness, 1095 in the 55 to 58 range, AEBL, Nitro V, flex instead of breaking, and come back sharp on a plain stone at camp. There is a version of this that people get right without knowing why. S35VN is roughly 15 to 20% tougher than S30V at the same hardness, which is why it quietly replaced it in so many hunting knives. Nobody advertised it as the tougher steel. They advertised it as the newer one. Same story with the tang. A full tang carries a bigger cross-section, and, more importantly, it does not have the stress concentration notches where a narrow tang steps down into the handle. Notches are where cracks start. That said, a well-built stick tang almost never fails in normal skinning work, and the blade breakages people photograph are usually not at the tang at all. So, full tang is a real advantage, and it is not the deciding factor most people think it is. Now, the money. A Havilland Paranta handle is about $40. The blades are the actual product. 12-pack of the 60A blades is $12.99, $1.08 a blade. 2 blades an animal, 4 animals a year, and you are near $127 across the decade. That is a light user. Guys running 100 blades a year clear $100 annually in blades alone. A Benchmade meat crafter in CPM S45VN is around $200, and Benchmade's Life Sharp program sharpens, cleans, oils, and adjusts it free, forever. $200 once. And a Buck 110 in 420HC is $60, behind Buck's forever warranty, and if you ever do wreck the blade, Buck replaces it for $10 and throws in what they call the spa treatment. Add a stone for $20 or $30. $90 for 10 years. The cheapest knife on the shelf in the softest steel is the cheapest knife to own across a decade, and it will outlive the man who buys it. That soft 420HC the internet sneers at comes back to shaving sharp on a river rock and resists rust while it does. Premium steel buys cutting performance at volume. It does not buy a longer relationship with the knife. If your grandfather's Buck 110 is in a drawer in your house right now, that knife already won this category. Fourth, boots, and this is where 2 products cost the same money and one of them dies in your closet. Polyurethane midsoles fail by hydrolysis. Water cleaves the ester linkages in the polymer, and the patent literature is explicit that the acid released by that reaction catalyzes more of the same reaction. That is why the failure accelerates once it starts. The boot rots from the inside out and looks perfect from the outside the whole time. Hanwag put a timeline on this on their own website. Onset around 6 to 7 years after the midsole is manufactured, and then the detail that guts you. The manufacture date of your sole may be considerably earlier than the day you bought the boot. The clock does not start when you pay. It starts in the factory. Lowe's United States warranty language lists midsole cracking, crumbling foam, and sole separation after storage, and states this condition is not considered a manufacturing defect and is therefore not covered. Asolo, through Kodiak, tells customers directly it is a natural process that happens over time and cannot be prevented whether the boot is worn or not, against a 6-month warranty. So the boot has a shelf life, it is not on the box, and the failure is written out of the coverage. Here is where the decision gets simple, because the 2 boots cost about the same. A Zamberlan in Norwegian welt is around $470, and it gets resold. Zamberlan's own guidance is that Norwegian and Goodyear welt boots are relatively easy to resole and can be fully restitched. Through the authorized shops, call it $120 a risoli. 2 resoles across 10 years puts you at $710, and the leather upper on a boot like that runs 15 or 20 years. Kenetrek rebuilds its mountain boot for $175 with a 6 to 8 week turnaround. Danner publishes a recrafting menu, $100 basic, $140 for a risole, up from there. Schnees rebuilds. Meindl roots to Dobbs at $175 to $225. Even a crispy with no factory program gets resold by an independent cobbler for around $105. Now the other boot. Loa states plainly that its injected soles, the Renegade Evo and the Zephyr MK2, cannot be resoled without compromising the structural integrity of the footwear. That is the manufacturer, on its own resolling page, telling you the boot is a closed system, $260. 3 of them across a decade is $780. $780 against $710. Same money at the register. One path ends with you owning a boot. The other ends with you owning nothing, 3 separate times. And the sharpest version of this is inside one brand. Loa will resole a Tibet or a Camino, because those are cemented construction. Loa will not resole a Renegade Evo or a Zephyr MK2, because those are injected. Same company, same warranty page, same store shelf, and the difference is invisible unless you go looking for it. Nothing on that box tells a man at the counter which of those 2 boots he is holding. I know because I stood at that counter, and I could not tell you either without pulling it up. So here is the question to ask before you pay. Not is it waterproof, not what the leather is. Ask whether the manufacturer will resole it, and ask what that costs. If there is no answer, or the answer is that the sole cannot come off, you are buying a boot with a fuse in it. 5th, and this one is short, because the evidence is thinner, and I would rather say that than hide it. Packs. What I have here is user reports, not laboratory data, and I want that labeled. Hunters on Rokslide and Hunt Talk describe the same failure points over and over, and it is never the fabric. A load lifter buckle letting go under a meat load on a solo sheep hunt. Zippers and pulls giving out on a 20-year-old Badlands. Waist belt stitching separating on a stone glacier. Those are the points where force concentrates, and that is where packs die. What is documented in writing is the warranty language, and it is worth reading before you spend $1,000. Exo Mountain Gear covers its packs for the lifetime of the product for the original owner. Read that twice. Lifetime of the product as the manufacturer defines it, and not transferable to the guy you sell it to. Stone Glacier publishes a lifetime warranty with a repair program behind it, and hunters report belt repairs covered. Mystery Ranch has repaired frames free out of warranty according to owners. Kifaru is the one I cannot show you because I could not find a public warranty page. Neither can the hunters asking about it on the forums. Buy on the warranty document you can actually read and understand that lifetime means the life of the pack, not the life of you. 6th, and this is the fastest death on the list. Heated jackets. Lithium cells are rated somewhere in the 300 to 500 cycle range. They lose about 20% of capacity inside 6 months of heavy use and 30 to 50% by year 2. And they age on the calendar whether you use them or not, which means the jacket hanging in your closet all summer is losing capacity while it hangs there. Aurora publishes real numbers, 4,800 milliamp hours, 7.38 volts, UL certification, rated to recharge up to 800 times, about 10 hours of heat. A replacement battery is $40 to $60, and it is user replaceable, which is better than the alternative. The alternative is the real risk. Aurora has run multiple battery generations, and not all of them fit the pockets of older garments. Gerbing runs a proprietary 2600 milliamp hour pack on a 7-volt system. When a battery generation gets discontinued and your jacket takes only that battery, you own a coat that does not heat. The garment outlives its own power supply. There is no buy it for life answer here, and I am not going to invent one. A heated jacket is a 1 to 3 year consumable with a coat attached. 7th and last, and this one is not about money until you see the number. Your safety harness has an expiration date. The Tree Stand Manufacturers Association and most manufacturers put it at 5 years from the date of manufacture, some at 3, and that date is required to be on the label. Your lifeline is worse. Hunter Safety System. Lifeline labels state the lifespan of the product is 2 years from date of manufacture, because unlike the harness, it stays out on the tree all season, in the sun and the weather. And the harness has breakaway stitching engineered to tear during a fall to absorb shock, single use. Once it has torn, the harness has already spent the only thing it had. So, price the calendar instead of the product. 2 harnesses across 10 years at about $100 each is $200. 5 lifelines at about $45 is $225. $425 per decade, per stand, just to keep the textile inside its own date. Hunt 4 stands, and the lifelines alone run past $900. Nobody budgets that. Not once did a customer walk up to my counter and ask what it costs to stay safe for 10 years. And here is why it matters. A study out of the Henry Ford Health System found hunters were nearly 3 times more likely to be injured falling from a tree stand at 4.59 per 10,000 hunters than by a firearm at 1.66 per 10,000. A 10-year review at the Ohio State University Medical Center found 59% of those injuries involve spinal fractures, 47% lower extremity, 8.2% permanent neurological damage, and 81% required surgery. Data out of the Marshfield Clinic in Wisconsin, covering 2009 through 2013, was used to put it in terms a man can hold on to. For a hunter who spends his seasons in a tree across a 50-year hunting life, the odds of needing medical attention after a fall come out around 1 in 20. Not 1 in 20 this season. 1 in 20 across the life you have already committed to. Honestly, that is the number that changed how I talk about this, more than any of the dollar figures on this list. The regulatory record is worth knowing too. The Consumer Product Safety Commission briefing package on the tree stand petition, dated June 14th of 2004, documents 137 incidents between 1980 and 2001, including 62 deaths, with 54 of those incidents citing failure of the stand itself. In April of that year, staff recommended denying the petition for a mandatory standard. The category runs on voluntary standards to this day, which is why the certification on the label is what you buy on. ASTM F2337 is the fall arrest standard. A Summit element is $69.99 and carries it. An XOP Ultralight is around $100 and carries F233721 among others, and openly lists no warranty, which does not matter because the certification is what holds you in the air, not the warranty. Check the recall history on the stand itself before you climb it. Gorilla Kong Max in 2007, Summit in 2010, 2012, and 2016, the last one for frame welds breaking. Alliance and X-Stand in 2020, for cables separating from corrosion, 5 reports and 2 fractures. Faradyne and Rhino in 2023. Now put all 7 side by side, because they are the same thing wearing 7 costumes. Nobody in this business is selling you a product anymore. They are selling you a repurchase schedule, and the schedule is the product. The cellular camera sells you a subscription and a network somebody else decides to switch off. The injected boot sells you a closed system with a chemical clock that started before you paid. The disposable blade sells you cartridges. The heated jacket sells you a battery generation. The harness sells you a date, and the $2,200 scope sells you a warranty claim instead of a scope that holds 0. Same mechanism every time. The price on the box is the entry fee. The real product is how often you come back. Nobody pays me to say any of these names. No affiliate links, no sponsors, nothing writing on which box you carry out of the store. Here is the list. Names and prices. Scope, SWFA. SS, 6 power fixed at $350 if you want the cheapest thing that held 0 under the protocol. Trijicon or Nightforce if you want magnification and adjustment with statistics behind them. Skip the $2,200 scope that tests like a market average scope. Trail camera, Reconix Hyperfire in the SD version. $400, 5-year warranty, made in Wisconsin, and no network anywhere that can shut it off. $650 for the decade against $1,630 for the cellular path. Knife, a buck 110 or 119 in 420 HC, $60 to $65, and a stone. If you process real volume, a Benchmade in S45 VN with free life sharp sharpening at $200, not cartridges, boots, welt or stitch down construction with a published Risol price behind it. Zamberlan, Danner, Kenetrek, Schnees. If the manufacturer says the sole cannot be resoled, that is a 3-year boot at a premium price, no matter how good the leather looks. Pack, buy on the warranty document you can actually read. Look for the words original owner before you assume it transfers. Heated clothing. Buy it as a consumable, not an investment, and check whether the battery is user replaceable before you commit. Harness and lifeline. Any harness carrying ASTM F2337 with a manufacture date on the label. Retire it at 5 years. Replace the lifeline every 2. Budget $425 per decade per stand, and stop pretending that part is optional. That is the $3,000. It was never about buying cheap or buying expensive. It was about knowing which one of those 2 boxes on the shelf has a fuse in it, and now you do.